Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. I'm back. I've had a few days off, but listen, who would begrudge me the hardest working man in Greyhound racing? I'm joined by a couple of other hard workers, the exile dub Tommy Lyons from his Youghal base, and of course our international correspondent Joe Sheahan, all the way from sunny Dubai. Although looking at his tan, you'd never guess it was that sunny there at all. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to see you. We have lots to discuss. Of course, we are going to look back at the final of the BresBet Easter Cup from Shelbourne Park on Saturday night and the quarterfinals of the Con Annie Kirby Memorial from Limerick on Saturday also. One or two other things we'll touch upon a little bit later on. But for the moment, let's get straight into the classic action. Tommy Lyons, the BresBet Easter Cup came to a good conclusion on Saturday night. Proper Greyhound wins it. It didn't happen for two or three of the dogs in the contest, but it certainly did happen for Swords Rex.
Yeah, and finally a draw suggested it should happen, and it did happen. And oftentimes you do find more often than not, I think with the final of a big competition, that the draw throws it wide open. This was quite the opposite. Although I tell you, I have to say, you'd have to be. If you were a punter, you'd have to be happy with the way the prices were. I mean, it returned 11-8. BresBet on the day, the sponsors were going 13-8 and willing to lay it for decent money. I've been up the walls with horse racing the last couple of weeks, and it all passed me by. And when I saw the SP, I couldn't believe it. 11-8. I thought the dog had to be odds on from the draw. So he had to work hard to lead Galloping Sydney into the bend, but actually. And I would argue that Swords Rex hasn't been at his very, very best through the competition, but he was been close enough to think that he was close to a good thing from an ideal draw. And that sounds like after time, but I think everybody saw it pre-race too, that everything was set in stone. It's just you'd be delighted. You'd be just delighted, as I say, with the SP of 11-8. I'd say plenty of people availed of that.
Well, you're echoing the thoughts of a man I regularly discuss matters with at the end of racing on a Saturday night at Shelbourne Park. I was talking to Noel Byrne, the Wine Tavern man, or nowadays the Jack Tavern man, member of the Pillar Syndicate, have had plenty of success in recent times. And his first words to me were, "Can you believe the price?" And like it certainly wasn't after timing from Noel's point of view, because I know he had a chunky sort of bet on him. Joe, in hindsight, hindsight is 2020. I sort of thought originally that Swords Rex would be odds on. I sort of suggested on the night, well, maybe it's just about the start. And if he does start, what price is he to start in front? And yeah, I suppose the closer it got to the race, the second thoughts sort of creep in. But as it was over pretty much early.
Yeah, but it was a race that had still, even though you were saying it should have been odds on, it still had massive depth in it. I mean, you had an English Greyhound Derby winner. I'm just delighted from a Limerick point of view that a former Con Annie Kirby winner went on to win another classic. But year in, year out, you see the continuation of the form from not only the finalists in the Con Annie Kirby, but even Greyhounds who entered, or who may have got knocked out in the first round or second round. Just the depth in is phenomenal. Swords Rex, what a Greyhound. From day one, when he ran in that first sweepstake in Clonmel, then to go to Limerick, then lit up the track in Clonmel again for the Produce Stakes. Just a phenomenal Greyhound. To stay going at the top level is not easy. It's very, very rare, and it's a sign of a true champion. And I can't wait to see him in Toaster. Hopefully, you were saying that's the.
Yeah, you made a pertinent point there about the Kirby Memorial form. We will get into that a little bit later on as we discuss this year's Kirby. But Tommy, from the very start, he has been something of a competition greyhound. It's true that he had a sort of blip in his career just around Derby time last year, but the signs were there. He did a very bad trial ahead of the Derby. The word was there was a bit of a race to get him back, and it was clear that he just wasn't himself for that month and a half, between the Derby and the Derby Plate. But he came roaring back to form Derby final night, doing that sensational 27.79 at Shelbourne Park, and then we saw something close to his best again in the Laurels, and here he is back, his first task this year and into the Easter Cup. And while he didn't light it up in terms of his very, very best form, he looks every bit a competition greyhound.
And that's what he is, Ian. And you know what? It's testament to the abilities of Graham Holland and the team, because he came back off a break and had one run before the Easter Cup, and he did 27.99. Now, in a funny way, you'd be saying, geez, that's nearly too much. Because
actually seemed to be tying up that night a little bit, which would suggest there was room to come.
He had in fairness, he's had plenty of trials, so he was fully fit and whatever else, and he was in great shape for the competition. The 27.99, and you think that he's going to go in there and start doing 29.20s and 29.30s in the Easter Cup when he steps up to 5.50. Didn't quite happen. he did his 3 sections for the first 3 rounds: 349, 367, 359. They didn't tally with a 202, which he did do a 27.99 in the 525. Like there was a small element, and I suppose this contributed to the price in the final. There was a small element of we're not exactly sure what we're going to get early on, right? And I think when a dog has obviously had his issues over his career, there's always a kind of concern: is there something there that maybe just holding him back ever so slightly? As I said, when I said a few minutes ago that he wasn't at his very, very best, I mean, he's not a million miles off, and I'm talking fractions. Because if he was at his best, if he had come in doing 29-30 in the semi-final, he would have been 2s on or 5-2 on from the draw. It's just that little bit of a concern. But like, he's a classy greyhound. Not only did he have to show ability to win it, and real proper ability, and I don't think, I know what Joe was saying about there was depth in the final. I'm not sure that it was a top Easter Cup final overall. I'd argue that maybe somewhat unfairly perhaps, but he had that extra bit of quality that the other greyhounds maybe didn't have. Imagine his and obviously the Kirby is a massive contributor, but imagine his career earnings are 122,000.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Phenomenal dog.
At a time when the prize money isn't as large as it has been in the past. Now the Kirby Memorial, the 80,000 certainly does help, and of course two other classic finalists, 2 finals last year, and then this year you have your obviously Easter Cup successors worth €25,000 to Swords Wrexham. I see what you mean about as regards to depth. I tend to agree with Joe in a sense where there was massive depth in the race, but I don't think it was a contest where he had to contend with the likes of a Coulivanny Hoffa or a Born Survivor or Born Warriors on the outside. They were guaranteed to go up absolutely scalding from the boxes. I don't think the draw was particularly favourable to any greyhound in the final other than Swords Rex, in a sense where Romeo Magic was out in 5. He wants to be on the inside of greyhounds, passing on the corner, and for Galloping Sydney is going to edge in when he gets the room, and if he's not getting to the front early, he's not going to win. Bocco's Crystal was going to be wedged the second she came out, as it transpired, with Trinity Junior probably wanting 3 or 4, Galloping Sydney wanting 1 or 2. So the only dog really with his draw was the inside runner, Swords Rex. It's no surprise that the big strong finisher in the race came through for second spot, because that's how the race ran. Nothing else really got the clearest of passages through the contest. So it was left for Toolmaker Wild to pick up the pieces.
Well, like, Connections will probably hate me for this, but this will be my rundown of it. I do this being kind of cold, and from the point of view of if I'm going to have a bet or whatever. Like Swords Rex, even if I think it's slightly below his very, very best, he's sensational. I mean, his best is more than most can ever dream of getting to. So even being slightly below it, he's still a serious greyhound, right? A one capable of dealing in any company. You got 2 Trinity Junior who hasn't been breaking, and was dependent then with Swords Rex edging off a little bit right from trap 1. Trinity Junior hasn't been breaking, hasn't been showing early pace, but hasn't proved himself this level yet. 3 is Bocco's Crystal, who's a smashing bitch, particularly good out of trap 1, but also when she's up against dogs at this level, I think she just comes out a tiny bit short. And
she's vulnerable in those first 25 yards, and that's the key. She's every bit as fast as them, but just that first 25 yards are the issue.
And when I say at this level, it's not a slight on Bocco's Crystal. It's just the fact that this is a classic final, a top classic final. Galloping Sydney, good early pace, but not that level in my opinion. 5 Romeo Magico, I don't have him down as being at his level at all through the competition. Like he denied it, thought he was an absolute certainty was because of the makeup of the draw. I actually thought it took him a little bit longer to get to the front and take command of that before he went on and did 29. What did he do? 32 or something? He did some big run anyway, whatever the time was. I thought everything was in his favour. And then Toolmaker Wild has no early pace, so isn't going to figure as a greyhound that's going to get in the way of something like Swords Rex. So I would argue that you could not have asked for any more for Swords Rex in terms of makeup of the final and the draw, and hence the reason I can't understand the 11-8. It kind of feels like after time, because I actually didn't take the price. I didn't. The whole weekend has been just so busy. Everything passed me by almost. And I was stunned. And then to hear, I met Carl Perry last night in Youghal, and we're just chatting, and he was saying they were going 13-8 and willing to lay it for good money. And he says, and there were hardly any takers. And actually, in fact, they actually laid it on the show at shorter prices.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? People sort of don't be looking at the prices during the week, really. You don't get involved. Yeah.
We haven't time today, Ian, but that's another point that we need to do. We need to people's confidence in being able to get a bet on in greyhound racing is diminished greatly, and we need to change that.
Yeah.
Because how can the likes of BresBet justify sponsoring an Easter Cup or any other competition that they sponsor in Britain unless they're getting it back somehow, or they're getting the interest somehow, even if they lose on the stake, right? If they get enough advertising out of it, they get something out of it. So it's for another day, but we need to build confidence in being able to get a bet on in greyhound racing again.
Yeah, and as you say, like they were willing to lay it, they just couldn't.
Yeah,
and that's funny. And you couldn't go any bigger. Like 13-8 was certainly a lot chunkier than I thought he'd be. Joe, looking at the race itself, this was a contest where they pinged out, and I sort of took a second or two to go, like, what's in front? You know, the inside five were, would have been covered by a matter of inches in the first 5-6 strides. Toolmaker Wild missed the kick. And I suppose that does also play into the hands of Swords Rex, because he's on the inside of said five. Galloping Sydney soon emerged from the pack, as did Swords Rex, and it was clear into the corner that one of those two was going to go around in front. Now, as it was, I on my first thought, but when you're commentating, I thought Swords Rex had moved off and given Galloping Sydney a bump. But when Galloping Sydney started to edge across and saw Swords Rex going up his inside, it's like he took his own step right on the corner. And all of a sudden, Swords Rex went from being either level or just a fraction behind to being too clear into the back straight. And that's it. Game over, ball burst.
The draw was so pivotal. And as Tommy said, maybe, as good as Swords Rex has shown, was he at his best? From a different draw, what kind of outcome would you, obviously, if stand stiff and a ball men's quick, it doesn't mean much for stand if, but it is an interesting point. But yeah, that draw is just so pivotal. But again, he showed his class. He extended his lead down the back straight, and he's a dog who I think will keep improving as the year progresses.
Yeah, as Tommy suggested, there's probably more to come from him. Like, if you put his 27.79 form over 550 yards, it's sub 29.20. Now, the track is definitely running slow at present, and that's perhaps to be expected after the winter we had. And, it's been pretty miserable here in Dublin for a while, but there's still probably an amount of salt in that, and it's going to be washed away you'd imagine by summer. There'll be plenty of time to get the track going well again, because these are dogs that you'd be expecting to do 29.20s and 29.30s, and they were struggling. Like, nothing broke 29.50 in the stake, so that will come. So I wouldn't be too worried about the 29.71 run, but I agree with you in a sense where he's certainly still capable of doing 25.50 at the moment. So that's full 3 lengths faster, and he'll need to, because he's off the toaster, which sort of caught me off guard. We'll get to that in a moment. Tommy, as regards the race in behind, Toolmaker Wild, very, very strong. As I said, I thought the race was sort of run to suit. Trinity Junior ran well in third. Galloping Sydney, once he didn't lead, was always going to sort of fade away a little bit, and he finished fourth.
I was kind of fancying Toolmaker Wild maybe to finish third, but it worked out nicely, as I said, because he edged in. Well, he edged in because the five were gone on him, and he could do what he liked. He had the whole width of the track to decide where he wanted to go. He's a very capable greyhound. He's second in the Easter Cup now. I thought Trinity Junior ran a cracker, I have to say. Trinity Junior ran a cracker in defeat. He was always going to struggle to lead. He's just not getting away from boxes. Has a lovely bit of early pace, but there was never a chance to show it because it all tightened in front of him straight away. So he couldn't really show his best. I mean, to be beaten only 4.5 lengths, I thought that was a smashing effort. Romeo Magico had a tough draw. As I said, I don't think at the moment he's at his best. And he ran a fine race. Galloping Sydney probably had every chance, and just kind of, I think Galloping Sydney ran its race. I think that's probably, is that fair? Bacchus Crystal didn't, because she'd missed it and was in trouble then, and she has to kind of get around in front. If she does, she makes it hard. But I definitely agree with Joe 100% that if you change the draw around, we've been spending a lot more time thinking about that final than we had to. Yeah,
very much so. Looking at the 6 finalists, I'm just going by the fact that who they are owned and trained by. There's strong potential that quite a number of them will be in Toaster. I'm like, Graham Holland is going. I don't know whether he'll bring Galloping Sydney. I would probably leave him for the sharper tests at home. But like, there's every chance that the remaining 5 could be there. Like, the winner, they've suggested that they're going to Toaster, which caught me, I must say, off guard altogether, because the rumours were swirling around Shelbourne. Would certainly know Barbara and Leonard Lyons well that he wouldn't be going to Toaster, but the talk after the race was that Leonard and Barbara were leaving it to Graham, and Graham has mentioned that Toaster is very much on could be a type of dog, could take the toaster. He's good early speed. He's good down the back. And it's all a case of whether he can take to the traps. Bacchus Crystal, while you'd imagine the Oaks would be her target, Bev and Graham, I was talking to them ahead of trip to toaster with him or her rather than the Oaks itself. Romeo Magico will clearly be going back defending his title if all is well. And Toolmaker Wild, Robert Gleason turned up at toaster last year. I just wouldn't be surprised if he said, sure, why don't we have a go again? Type of dog, keep qualifying. So we could see plenty of these in toaster. As regards the potential Derby champion, I think Swords Rex is the one you'd be looking at, Tommy. He's roughly about a 20-1 chance. That mightn't sound like an awful lot of value, but when you consider that the dogs ahead of them are UK trained and like from post to pillar, as fast a greyhound he is, he certainly won't be leading Swords Rex to the opening corner. Best of luck trying to pick him up.
Well, my opinion on this would be, right, obviously Graham Holland is an expert at it. He doesn't need me to be saying he's right or he's wrong. But I would say for a dog that's had a a lot of breaks in his career, say, and a dog that's clearly a special talent, it's taken a lot of work and a lot of effort, a lot of perseverance from the team in Graham Holland to get him back to this sort of level. And when he's at it, I don't think he can stop. I don't think he can say, do you know what, let's ease off him now for a couple of months and bring him back for an Irish Derby, because you just don't know where you stand with the dog at that stage. That's the way I'd be thinking if I owned him or if I trained him. I'd be saying, do you know what, we have him in great form. Yeah, we can get a little bit of a break into him. We'll get a couple of trials into him if need be, and we get him over to toaster and see how he goes. Because I think he's not only is he obviously good enough ability wise, but I think he's a clever enough dog as well, a tracker as well. Even though he edges off from one, and
winning a Derby, especially in England, is not just about ability. It's about, as you say yourself, brains and a little bit of luck, but also a good tough sort of constitution, and he seems to have that.
Yeah, exactly. And toaster being a tricky track, a very tricky track, you need a clever dog as well as a dog of ability. Yeah. And what I like about him as well, apart from the fact that you have to admire immense ability, which he clearly has. But you saw in the Laurels last year when he finished second in the semi-final, I think. I mean, he missed it completely and was entitled to be out of the competition. Did a 3:59 in Curraheen Park and finished second, beating length and a half behind the winner, doing 28-28. I mean, that's serious. You know what I mean? Around Curraheen, when you say, "Oh well, that's him gone now. He's missing."
Well, when you hear a 3:59, like that's leaving guts of 6 lengths at boxes against the very best.
When you're talking about Laurel's dogs doing 3:20s. Like that's a huge thing. It's a huge error in a dog at that track, and it's not a very easy track to make to kind of wend your way through a crowd of dogs in front of you. So I mean, he has that in him, and that's why we call him a competition dog. He has that in him whereby if things go wrong for him, he can still find a way to get through, and that is very important in toaster, I think, as we see year on year.
Yeah, Joe, any other thoughts on the finals, or we wrap it up and start looking at Limerick?
Yeah, as I think that was a fantastic point you made, especially toaster. It's not just about who can come out and do the 27-80 runs. It's that tough dog, it's the cleverness, it's the ability to navigate your way around dogs when your back is to the ropes. And I think I'd agree with all your points there. He definitely has the makings. Not even has the makings. He is a competition dog. He's proved it in every competition he's gone. He got to the Lawrence final. I know he got to the Produce Stakes final. He won the Kirby. He won that Unraced in Clonmel, and he's just he ticks all the boxes for me.
Yeah, good dogs win good contests and good good sort of grade 1 events, but proper greyhounds win classics, and this fellow's now a dual classic winner, and he was also a red hot favorite in the Produce Stakes final, only to suffer all sorts of traffic, and he's beaten no distance in a Laurels decider, just in third. Just didn't happen for him on the night, but like any sort of luck, this could be a 4-time classic winner at this stage. So any classic he goes into, he has to be shown the utmost respect. And from a sponsor's point of view, BresBet, they have a dog now that is a serious English Derby challenger, and every time he runs, it'll be a case of this the BresBet Easter Cup champion from earlier in the year. it's all they want going forward. Well done to Barbara and Leonard Lowndes, great supporters of the game. They had a Gold Cup winner a few years ago. Now they have an Easter Cup winner. And Leonard was saying to me on Saturday night that the only final they really haven't been in Ireland is the Derby final. So maybe that's the target down the line with Swords Rex. In the meantime, I'm sure they'd settle for an English Derby decider. And well done to Graham Holland. What he's achieved over the last 10, 12 years has just been unbelievable. To have 4 finalists the other night, had plenty of pressure on him. And you could sense that in the interview with the cat. The cat was asking all the pertinent questions, and he got plenty out of Graham. And Graham sort of, you could see the puff of the cheeks going, yeah, it's nice to get him over the line. Nice to get one of them over the line, because he had 4 in the Limerick final before, Joe, and Mr. Heffernan denied him with the blast off jet dog.
Yeah, it doesn't always go down. Even you see some dogs do all these runs and then it comes to the final and those small margins. But yeah, you can imagine in his shoes there was a lot of pressure going up in 4. You'd be thinking if he didn't win, oh God, what went wrong? But yeah, no, fair play. What he did is absolute phenomenal. It's absolute, and it's testament to him to the work him and all his family do. A fantastic team down there.
Yeah, we have to mention Nikki. Nikki was celebrating a notable birthday at the weekend. I told her I wouldn't say it to anybody, so I'll keep it between ourselves here, lads, right? A notable birthday, okay? Just say she's just a few years older than me. We move on. Well done to everyone involved in the BresBet Easter Cup. A wonderful competition, a tremendous winner in Swords Rex. We move on, because at Limerick on Saturday night, 22 became 12 in the Con Annie Kirby Memorial. Sadly, we had a 4-dog heat. The last heat was down to 4 runners. We'll get to that in a few moments, but we'll kick off proceedings with the opening heat. And Pat Buckley has regularly targeted this competition, Joe. He's got 2 live challengers. Teresa Mendoza, so good in 28.07. She didn't lead into the opening corner, but she led on the corner, taking it up and quickly moving on. Ben's Teddy was forced to check his stride badly off the second bend, running into the back of Run Faster. He was checking on heels back to 4th, ran a big race to even qualify in 3rd, and Scaglietti was only 5th at the opening corner and moving 4th sort of early in the back straight. He ran very well in 2nd from a tricky draw out in 4. 3 very fast qualifiers. Any of these 3 could win the Kirby. I went to look at Ben's Teddy's price on Sunday thinking, I'll get 6 or 7 to 1 about this fella, thinking, they'll underestimate him. He's got a nice draw. 7-2 favourite in places, 4-1 elsewhere. I think I'll leave it, although, my God, he's got some engine.
Yeah, fantastic. And bred by our own Corona, Ryan. Have to give her a mention. And a great story, that dog. But as you said, this competition means a lot to Pat Buckley. He came here with 10 Greyhounds this year. Like, he threw the kitchen sink at it. And having won it 3 times before, fantastic feat, and has a huge chance of winning it this year. Teresa Mendoza, absolute machine. That won the last year, 28.07, 16.04, home in 12.03, 4.12 to the opening turn. I mean, those are Kirby winning splits, and fantastic to see local owners as well. The Ahern family, and there's some more than Nolans involved from Abbeyfield, which is in Limerick as well. And I know this means a lot to them to even get this far in the Kirby. So fantastic from a local point of view. But she's an absolute machine. Ben's Teddy, that 28-10 run was absolutely phenomenal. And if there's anyone in the country you want to train your dog come to this kind of level of the Kirby, it's Pat Buckley. So huge chance. It's going to be interesting the next year with the trap draw 1 and 2 beside each other.
Yeah, we'll get to that. There were 1 or 2 the other night, of course, beside each other. Tommy, Teresa Mendoza, it's been clear from the early stages that Pat Buckley thought the world of her, mainly because he told people he thought the world of her. It's a well beaten path. She's taken the same path that Sing Along Sally took. She's quite similar in a sense. She wants the inside. She's pretty professional. She doesn't have to be in front. She'll give her all if she's not in front. But when she is in front, she's pretty quick. A 28.07 run the other night. It's her best run to date, but I can imagine she could repeat this in the future, no question.
Oh, there's no fear that she can repeat it. She'll do it every night of the week. Like her run in the Juvenile Classic final in Tralee, second to Ballymacmarino, was a fabulous run too. I think I'm not teaching anybody, people anything they don't already know, but like we'll be looking at the Juvenile Classic and the Kirby for the remainder of the year, because I think they're both top competitions yet again, top renewals. She's seriously good, Teresa Mendoza. Yeah, look, she did a 128. I think Joe knows the sections better than I do around Limerick, but I wouldn't have her down as a specialist early pacer now. That I think we'll find as we go along, we'll find hotter greyhounds. That's in the early stages. but she stays particularly well as well. So I don't think there's any fear if she's going to step up to 550 at some stage. That, and also I think in Limerick, like, it's a long run to the escape. You need that little bit of strength about you as well, which she definitely has. Scaglietti ran a superb race as well in defeat. Slightly checked, edging in early, and got shuffled back into fourth place. And you're kind of thinking, like,
he reminds me so much of Vincenzo. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
similar dog last year. Came into the kennel, wasn't bred by the kennel. They bought him in. He's looks so strong. He's really powerful on the bunny. Just a lot to like about him.
Yeah, and he can definitely break a lot better than the other night. I mean, and then you've got Ben's Teddy, who is a phenomenally fast dog. I was kind of hoping something similar to you, Ian, that the price might be slightly wrong on him, because, like, you come from behind, run faster. That's a proper dog too, run faster. Who was in front of it going down the back, and like Ben's Teddy, I actually thought, I know it was 1 in 28 or 7. I still think Ben's Teddy would have won that.
I told Pat Buckley, I was talking to him on Sunday night in Enniscorthy, and I said, Ben's Teddy is left alone at that second bend. He does 27.90, wins a couple of lengths.
Because I think I wrote about it last week after the previous round. I think his run was like a sub 28 second run the previous week too, because just where he got held up a couple of times having to just racing room more than anything else. He is phenomenally fast, and he's already has a bit of experience, as we know, against older company and all that sort of stuff. So, and he looks like he's improved as well. So he's a player, but I wouldn't like to say that Teresa Mendoza won't dip under 28 seconds either. She's going the right way, and I think that run in the final in Juvenile Classic in Tralee is which wouldn't be well, it's pretty close to beating 3.5 lengths, but it's still a huge effort. Like,
yeah, I tend to agree.
She's going about 28 seconds some night somewhere.
Well, you could see her finding a length at boxes, and that's 28 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, which is natural improvement. She's only just gone 2 years of age, representing South Liberties GAA. That's pretty handy, Joe.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's very fitting that the home GAA club of JP has, and coming into this competition, I'm sure they're very, very excited. But after that 28-07 run, I'm sure there's a lot of excited people involved with South Liberties. It would be great to see her get.
She was clearly one of the stars prior to the start of the competition. I'm not suggesting now, but could perhaps would have been one of the warmer balls in the drum. You never know.
Cold out of the fridge.
Run faster. He was in a lovely position down the back straight, but he just found two dogs in behind them that are immensely strong. Burgess Bulger, certainly fast greyhound, 28-23 in the opening round. I've seen from him plenty of times that he's a bit dependent on the inside draw, but when he gets it, he's a potent individual. Ballymac John Joe, while he ran well in Limerick around prior to the competition, over 600 and 550 yards, I don't think he's in love with the place. I really don't, Tommy. This is not the same Ballymac John Joe we saw at the back end of last year. I think they'll be pretty swift in moving him back to Shelbourne Park, where we could see a very different animal.
Yeah, it was actually funny. I was talking about that to somebody last night, just saying about, individually talking about each of the tracks and saying there's kind of a nuance in each of them, apart from maybe Shelbourne Park. And I know that kind of gets boring when people think that everything has to be revolved around Shelbourne Park. But sometimes you have a dog like that who just absolutely cannot deal with those, tighter tracks, or if there's a tricky bend or whatever, just can't deal with them. He's kind of one of those, because we know how fast he is. I don't think the clock is a concern to him. He can do any clock. It's just getting that right track for him. So yeah, I agree with you. We'll see better from him definitely later in the year.
Yeah, no question about it. We'll move on to the second heat of the Con Annie Kirby Memorial, because we saw Graham Holland, a man who had a decent Saturday night, has to be said, won with Clonbrien Treaty. Joe, we've all been watching this dog for a few weeks now. I happened to see him during his unraced stake in Shelbourne Park. Completely walked from traps 236 and 231 in the two rounds, but showed devastating early speed in both occasions, found traffic, and showed pace down the back straight. And you could see he was an accident waiting to happen. But then you saw him in the three previous runs in the Kirby, and he's walking out of traps, showing great early speed, pace down the back straight. And you're thinking to yourself, maybe he's just going to be a dog that doesn't trap. And the other night, while he didn't take a flyer, he certainly broke an awful lot better. I was quite surprised that he edged wide into the opening corner as much as he did. It'd be a concern for me the next night he's in trap one, but there's no question this fellow can run. And given what we've seen from him thus far, he's probably open to more improvement than any greyhound left in the competition.
I like him. He's lightly raced. He's only 6 runs, and he's owned locally as well by the Murphy family. Remember, they had Ambrine here on the Kirby a couple of years ago.
I'd say Jim Kay and Wirren are absolutely, I'd say they're on tender hooks. It's been a few years since Clonbrien Prince and Clonbrien Hero. This fellow could potentially fill those boots.
Yeah, and if he smartens up, he hasn't been shown the deadly severely paced, but I like him as the competition goes on. He's one that's finding his feet as it goes on, and that 28-31 run shows that he's paced enough to win a Kirby. Find another couple of lengths of improvement, and he's banged there to business end of things. And as you said, 6 races, there's bound to be more in the tank, and the right man is training him. So I definitely like Clonbrine Treaty, and from a local perspective, great to have more Limerick owners there in the mix.
Yeah. In behind it, YI Man and Blast Off Salah. It wasn't the cleanest of runs in behind. Like YI Man's held up in a couple of places and shows plenty of boot. Blast Off Salah was in a lovely position going into the corner, ran off the bend, found himself in 4th into the back straight, but got going again down the back straight to qualify. They were close together on the line, but Clonbrine Treaty was gone on them, Tommy. Clonbrine Treaty, I think, is the dog. While YI Man has a 28-26 in his card and a 28-18 around Limerick, I think Clonbrine Treaty probably has more chance of winning competition than him.
If he gets through the next round, which I have my concerns about, YI Man is obviously is kind of a strange heat, because YI Man went from 123 the previous week to 134. Clonbrine Treaty went from 141 to 132. It was like an almost a reversal kind of in this. But actually, YI Man broke well, but I just didn't show anything to the bend, which had done previously, which kind of confused me a little bit. Like he did 28-18 last week. He actually broke nicely in front of Clonbrine Treaty. I would have a concern like you, Ian, but looking, I don't know if we're talking about the heats now, but I would have a concern about the draw for next week from Clonbrine Treaty. And not helped by the fact that Singalong Emer's in 2 who can break and can show pace into the bend and all that sort of stuff. So that's a deadly tricky heat next week. Clonbrine Treaty, though, the only thing is, obviously, that was his first time. I think it was his first win, was it?
It was his first win.
Greyhounds can change the way they race, obviously, and I think we saw that in the heats, and we'll talk about it maybe later on in another heat. But dogs can change their way of racing, whereas they can look like they have no early pace and pure stayers, and then all of a sudden be early pacers. Now, I don't think he's quite going to do that, but like his sections, like you talked about a minute ago in Shelbourne, were diabolical, really.
But there's a big difference between trapping ability and early pace. Like, this dog has sprinting early speed. Like, he's sensationally fast early, but he got held up into the corner the other night. Now, what I've seen from him in the past is he's walked out and raced into the opening corner, and that's a recipe for disaster often.
Disaster.
Flying into the corner. But if he does find his trapping boots, which 131 the other, or 132 the other night, is considerably better, and that's even edging off and probably bumping into 1 or 2 of the dogs on the outside. Like, there is room for 120s there. You know what I mean?
Watch him the night he was in Trap 1, the March 25th. He was broke, okay-ish, edged off a little bit, got a bump, and then he straightened himself up. You think that's good. Well, and about 5 tries later, he decides to try go right again, and then he straightens himself up. It gets very tight. They all come in, and what does he do at the bend? Straight off to middle, not right out across the track into the hair rail, but like, he's determined to get out that middle course, which is a bit of a concern. But the only thing is, he's like any pup. He's an August pup with only 6 runs under his belt. He's entitled to find a way to improve and to kind of straighten himself out and just learn as he's going along. They're still very young pups, and he's particularly young.
But as you say, he is very puppyish. There's still plenty of signs of greenness there and whatnot. In behind YI Man, you spoke about Blast Off Salah. We highlighted this fellow in one of the, it could have been after the first round. He showed plenty of pace. He was massive prices in that contest, 25 to 1, 8 to 1 the following week. He's probably a big price again the other evening. He has plenty of poot. Again, he ran off the corner the other night. If he'd stayed tight to the fence, he'd have been a lot closer, and he would have been second if not, challenging the leader.
Yeah, even without winning, he's running up behind some fast dogs, and he's showing, if you watch his races closely, he's showing as much pace as any of them. I was speaking to Daniel Jones, his owner, recently, and he said this fella can move if he gets the space, and I know he's involved with Philip Buckley as well, who won the Ledger a couple of years ago, so the right people have him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if with a more forward running way, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more in the tank with him as well.
Yeah, no question about that. Belinda's Finn didn't happen for him. I think he's mad for the fence. I think he is more early than he's shown, but unless he's trapping from the middle, he's going to struggle. Beeper's Lariat has loads of pace. Again, went unbeaten prior to Saturday night's action, and just unlucky to get it knocked out. And same for Romeo Hanzo, who I feel is another dog that probably is better when he's closer to fence. He had 28.07 the previous week. He's a very fast greyhound, but just didn't happen for him on the night. We'll see more of them in the future, I have no doubt. Moving on to Heat 3, Tommy, I'll let you start this one. Bogger Lucky. Clonagh firstly was the hot favourite, but so often we see it, a dog that equaled the track record the previous week, and they've just used up so much energy. They just don't quite shine the following week. It's one of those situations. He missed the kick somewhat and just never really got going, moved into third spot, but was always going to be vulnerable thereafter. And Ballymacshawny stormed home to pick him up. But, a lot to like about Bogger Lucky. He's a dog with plenty of early speed, really did catch the eye. I'm not sure if it was the first. Yeah, it was the first round actually against Boyle Sports Dazzle. He flew into the corner after a missed kick. And he entered my sort of consciousness that night. I know he's shown plenty down in Kilkenny, but I was sort of willing to sort of wait to see what he was like in real company like Kirby, and I think there's a lot to like about him. 4:19, 16:24, so didn't set the clock alight 28:45, but did plenty right from the outside, and probably guaranteed his draw for the remainder of the competition for as long as he stays in it. And he's got a good draw next week, could easily be in the final.
Yeah, I liked the performance because I thought Hovek's Tommy really put it up to him. Now Bogger Lucky, it looks like his sectional is really good, but it doesn't match up to last week. So maybe that's just track conditions. Maybe, I'm not sure. But he broke well, and Hovek's Tommy really put it up to him. And I just love the fact that when Hovek's Tommy got to maybe within 3/4 of length going down the back, that it just looked like Bogger Lucky was really determined not to let the dog up, the inside, and kind of, not that he was trying to lean on top of him, he was just trying to drive on by him. And Hovek's Tommy never gave up. He switched outside late on, and he edged into the lead without ever really making an impact on it. Clonagh, you make a good point in that, and that's the kind of dog I was talking about in one sense. Like when he was in the juvenile derby, we were kind of calling him a strong stayer, kind of, over the 5.25 and whatever else, and then he popped out in the final and won most impressively. I still kind of expect him to find a way to qualify the other night. Like, he showed lovely pace down to the third bend, and was in a position, like, the two ways of looking at this. Either one, yes, he was a little bit flat and whatever else, or else we might just be underestimating Ballymacshawny as a dog that's going to improve an absolute ton. He's a big 79-pound dog. And maybe
he's very quick, because he didn't even get the clearance of runs the other night. God, like, he made up some ground, and he's really storming home.
Maybe we'll be talking about him in a different tone completely in a couple of months' time when he has the time to develop, because, as I say, he is a big dog. He'd be slightly disappointed with Clonagh, but which is a lovely thing to be saying if you're in some ways, because he's that good, and he's still in the quarterfinal. He was still in the quarterfinal of a Kirby, and he has won a juvenile derby. So I think we're just setting the bar so high for him. He'll come back and he'll be a player in all the major stakes for the rest of the year. But it can, like we said about it, you need stamina in abundance, because there's a good long run to the escape and all that in Limerick. So if you're doing a 27.95, it probably is taking quite a bit out of you. He's a proper dog, but the connections will be disappointed, but they'll know that there are better days ahead. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if he goes through Toaster or not. Maybe, given the fact that he's still relatively likely to race, they might avoid it this year. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't be. I certainly wouldn't be underestimating him going forward. I think he's a very, very fast greyhound. We sat together for the opening round of Juvenile Derby. We liked him a lot that night. That was the night I actually backed him to win the Juvenile Derby, and I was somewhat surprised when he did win it in the end, given the fact that he was a big price in the final. But I was more than happy. He's come on leaps and bounds since then, and this is just a blip.
I'd like him for Hovey, and I have to say, I'd give him a real chance, because he could. Or Toaster, sorry. What did I say?
Hove.
Oh, that was strange. I'd like him for Toaster, because I do think he has those attributes we talked about earlier on, that he can stay. I know we would slightly contradict myself in terms of the other night being picked up, but I do think that Ballymacshawny is one we're going to be talking about. But I just do think he stays well enough, and he can go off the front, and he's a clever enough tracker. There's a lot of things I like him. A lot of ticks the right boxes, and he has plenty of experience. He's juvenile derby, and now he's been through 3 rounds of a Kirby as well. A lot of experience against top dogs. I don't think he should be phased going to Toaster or Hove.
Joe, what's your thoughts on the race? Bogger Lucky obviously showed the best early speed on the outside, and that's the key.
seen it so many times regarding Clonadduke. Limerick is a tough track. I mean, no one can question Clonadduke's ability to go through a competition. He did 5 rounds in Shelbourne and won the juvenile derby, but I've seen it school and pup so many times they can do a run. The following week, they might go back 20 or 30 spots and you come home tearing your hair out thinking what's gone wrong. 2 weeks later, they'll find that time again. That's just the nature of Limerick for a pup. It's a challenging track. It's a long run to the pickup. And I would say maybe that could have knocked the edge out of Clonadduke. I really like Boggerlucky. I really fancy him to qualify the next night. He has a nice, he out on the outside there is perfect. Came here with a 28.62 run around Kilkenny. That's no easy feat. And his splits the last day 4.19. He has the early. He stays as well. He's doing about 12.20 coming home. Really, really like him. Liam Peacock is a good man with a dog, and as well bred as well. The damn bred Crypto Punk who ran in the Kirby last year is quite a talented dog. So has the breed and has the early pace, and a bit like Stone Park Leo. That time sometimes just being on the outside, sometimes it can help you avoid a bit of trouble, especially if you're one on the inside who's tending to head for the fence.
Yeah, we certainly have 2 or 3 dogs left in the competition that will be heading towards the fence. So you could see it. You could see a situation where he finds himself in front on the outside in the final. It could be the place to be.
And it'll take a good dog to come from behind him. If he does find himself in that position, it'll take a right good dog to come from behind him. And I don't think many will go home in 12.20. And only 9 will be improving. Yeah, I definitely like Bogger looking at out of that heat the next night. He's one I really, really fancy to qualify.
Okay. We'll move on to the last of the 4 heats because it was a 4-dog affair, but it was the fastest run of the night. Rye Hope Beach. He's a dog with a huge reputation and clearly has a massive, massive engine, Joe. Didn't lead around the opening corner the other night. I thought he should have been closer in the corner. I think he's just been a little bit wary around the opening bends. He obviously has found a little bit of traffic there in recent starts, including in the night he was knocked out of the Juvenile Classic. But he's a very, very fast greyhound. And Michael O'Donovan, you mentioned Stone Park Leo there a few moments ago. He's bidding to win another Kirby here in Rye Hope Beach, who was backed into clear favouritism prior to the competition, is clearly a very big player. Just want to be doing things a bit sharper early, I think.
Yeah, I was questioning after his first 2 runs around Limerick, maybe you could say things didn't go his way, but after that 28-10 trial, I would have presumed he would have been more forward. Last day was a 4-dog race, was it, did we probably maybe hard to judge the true form, but he's out in 6th the next night. A lot of early pace in his inside the next night. Very, very, very classy dog. 28.05, 4.19, 16.09, coming home 11.96. He's starting, he's staying. He has the pace in sectionals all day long to win a Kirby. I would say I know he's favoured, but it's a challenging heat the next night, especially with all the early pace on the inside. What I would say is he'll need to be putting his best foot forward. He'll need to be doing his very, very best to get to the final. I would say with all the early bases inside, as classy as he is, and I mean, those runs in Tralee were absolutely sensational. But it's just taken him a bit of time to maybe get used to Limerick. But 28.05, no question about it. That was a savage run the last day.
As much as I hate to say it, I often do say it, Tommy. I think he's going to be a real 550-yard Shelbourne Park greyhound. He's going to be just the need to be a bit sharper early in this Kirby, but there's no question that the ability is there.
Yeah, the ability is there, and I think he's gonna have to break a bit better to adapt to the top level over 550. Yes, he's shown that he stays well, but what we saw in Tralee, you would suggest that he was a flying early pacer, the most professional greyhound you'd ever see there for a couple of rounds, and then things haven't gone right for him. I think he's going to need a bit of time. I'm a bit like Joe. Joe didn't quite say it, but I don't see him qualifying for the final, I'll be honest. I just don't. He's seriously fast, 28.05. It's kind of a funny thing to say about a dog that good, but this is a deep competition. I think he's going to need a little bit of time to realise the potential that we saw in here as well. As I was going to say in Tralee, but he obviously, when he's doing 28.05, it's not bad.
Well, in a couple of minutes, I tell you what, in a couple of minutes we'll talk about that heat because we have to race through. I know Joe has to be somewhere. I think he's got to get his hair done. But yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the draw in a moment. Let's talk about the dogs in behind him first. Gaytime Hugo, very strong. We've second off the second bend. you saw enough of him down in Corky. That 29.67, 550-yard run looked really fast, Greyhound, that night. He's come on again for that run, or for those runs in the early rounds of the Kirby. And while he hasn't won around Limerick yet, he's certainly been showing plenty in defeat. Sing Along Emer, I thought she had a very, very tricky draw in 4. She clearly wants the inside. It was very evident in the early yards the other evening. I don't know if she got clipped from behind or what happened, or did she take a poached step off the second bend? But she seemed to lose a lot of ground very quickly, but then got going again to qualify in third. What are your thoughts on it, Tommy?
A big red flag for me there now. I'm very concerned to say something is just maybe very slightly now, slightly. But I'm talking about red flag in terms of this competition alone, because she's got serious talents, as we saw in the previous round. I think that concerned me as well when I was watching and I was going, what happened there? I didn't think that the Ryhope Beach had suddenly accelerated or anything like that. I think she seemed to just kind of maybe. Ease might be harsh. I don't know what exactly happened to her. I looked at it a few times, like you, looking for something. Did I see a misstep, or did I see something, a falter or a bump or a clip or something? I couldn't see anything. And that would concern me in terms of, just for the sake of next week, and if she qualifies, for the final as well. I think she's a bitch that after this competition, if she got a few weeks, that she might be a different one. That we might see her show. If you look at her form, there isn't a great consistency in it yet, but I think that can come. I think she's like, you can't do 28.08 here off of 127 without being seriously talented. But I think at the moment I have a small bit of a concern, and that would put me off her now come next Saturday night.
I think she's very strong. I think she'll stay further. Like, she's a big 70-pound bitch. You saw her edging for the fence the other evening, and while she did lose that ground off the second bench, she really did keep going to the line. And she's better drawn the next night, although she has the aforementioned Clonbrine Treaty up her inside. She's either going to have to break in front of him or break behind him. Probably not best to break alongside him. They're the 3 qualifiers. Let's take a quick look at the semi-finals. As I say, Joe has to be heading elsewhere. The opening semi-final. 1 Benz Teddy, 2 Teresa's Mendoza, 3 Blast Off Salah, 4 Gaytime Hugo, 5 Scaglietti, and out in trap 6 is Ryhope Beach. Pat Buckley will be hoping that perhaps Teresa's Mendoza clears Ben Teddy early, and if that's the case, they'll probably both qualify. If Ben's Teddy gets up the inside of Teresa's Mendoza, just perhaps leaves her a little bit vulnerable, although she's very strong herself. Blast Off Salah in 3. He's going to be doing things right. Same thing can be said for Gaytime Hugo. Scaglietti, he can break much better than he has done. You could see him getting involved here, Tommy, despite the fact he's a bit far out, but he's probably more early speed than 3 and 4. And Ryhope Beach, as we've said, will probably need to improve his starting. It's an intriguing contest. I'd be looking towards the inside pair myself.
Well, I tell you, I'd break it down like this, because I think it's quite. I think we can make it a little bit less complicated by thinking that maybe 3 and 4 are going to struggle in the early yards, right? And that's not rocket science. But section will say that they're both going to struggle early, right? That gives a little bit of room inside and outside. It gives Ben's Teddy, I think, and Teresa Mendoza would be very similar in terms of early pace ability. Maybe slightly more Teresa Mendoza, but not enough to get a length out of Ben's Teddy to the bend. That'll be my concern. I think Ben's Teddy can hold the position against Teresa Mendoza, but the fact, and this is important, the fact that Blast Off Salah and Gaytime Hugo don't have the early pace, it should allow for her to ease off a little bit Teresa Mendoza into space. I don't mean she doesn't want to move right, but if the space is there on the outside, and that can ensure that they avoid trouble. Scaglietti can break a little bit better. I think he can probably match at least match Ryhope Beach into the first bend, and if he does, he'll probably assert on the bend into third place, I would suspect. And then it's a matter of whether Ryhope Beach can pick up well enough. He's got to make sure he doesn't go back into the pack among Blast Off Salah and Gaytime Hugo, because we know how strong both of those are. Gaytime Hugo is a danger to anybody in terms of qualifying. This is the type of dog that we'll forget about. And then he'll pop up some night and we'll be going, oh geez, actually he ran very well. But just because he's not winning races, we're not really thinking too much about him. I think he's seriously fast and developing into a proper greyhound. But I would definitely go with Ben's Teddy in this heat.
Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, I think the actions happen on the inside here. Ben's Teddy and Teresa's Mendoza, I definitely fancy them to qualify. They've been doing the splits. They're consistent in their run so far. I think the epic battle here will be between Scaglietti and Ryhope Beach. although Ryhope Beach on raw form has 28.05, I wouldn't necessarily say that, Scaglietti is still coming home in around about 12 seconds, about 12:13 in the first round. 1:05.75 open stake around Cork. You're not going to come from behind him. If Scaglietti can navigate the turn in front of Ryhope Beach will have to be going all out to pass it out. I'd probably fancy Ben Steady, Trees, Mendoza and Scaglietti to qualify.
If Ryhope Beach missed the beat at the start and comes from behind Scaglietti, get on him for the Derby, because I'm not sure there's too many dogs in training to pick up Scaglietti. No, but fair. You could be right. But there is a potential Ryhope Beach could do it, because that's how immensely fast he is, and he's looking stronger and stronger as we watch him. If he does pick up Scaglietti, trust me, you're looking at an unbelievable greyhound.
That's Stella. If he gets a bit of room and stays on well enough, has been coming on in around about 12:10 as well. There's plenty of ability if it's there at the third bend. Might be lacking that touch of class that the likes of Ben Steady and Teresa Mendoza has. You wouldn't write him off if it has a bit of space. Gaytime Hugo, I think it's lovely that for the O'Connell family, they had the dam Gaytime Durban and the sires of Gaytime Hawkins. I think it's the epitome of what greyhound racing means to families across the country in Ireland. There's so many families and generational involvement. I think it's fantastic to see that for the O'Connell family, and it'd be nice to see them do it. But they'd be my three: Ben Steady, Teresa Mendoza and Scaglietti. But Ryhope Beach, I'm writing them off at my peril, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to the second heat. Joe, I'll let you speak about this one. Firstly, a lot will depend on what Clonbrine Treaty does at traps and then into the opening corner. Bogger Lucky's, I think it's no surprise for me to say that he's the best drawn dog in the race.
Yeah, definitely fancy Bogger Lucky to qualify. 4:19, 4:20. He's doing it consistent out of boxes, and he drives into. He's a determined dog. He really drives into that bend. Fancy him to qualify. Sing Along Emer. I don't know. The run the last day, could you say it's the 28:08 run took the edge off her? Would that be a fair assessment? I don't know. It was a strange kind of run. She didn't show her best kind of pace. I would say if we can see her repeat that 28:08 run, she's a certainty to qualify. Clonbrine Treaty, I would fancy him from the red jacket, definitely. Why him, man? He can never write off Robert Gleeson. He won this competition before, but Bogger Lucky, Clonbrine Treaty, and one from the middle. Maybe Ballymacshawn he'd be staying on well. Might pick a third spot. They'd be my three. But
go ahead.
Neat.
Yeah, Tommy, we'll be looking at Ballymacshawn just to look for clues going forward. He seems a dog that's certainly going the right way. But in terms of picking the likely winner here, given the fact that he's potentially guaranteed a clear passage in the outside, Bogger Lucky is the most likely winner?
Not for me, no. Not for me. I think he's possibly vulnerable. 28:45. Look at the clocks, best clocks on the previous heat: 28:10, 28:07, 28:21, 28:05. And this one you've got 28:31. Yes, you've got 28:08 Sing Along Emer. Then you got 38:27, 18:45. I mean, it looks a closer heat, and maybe one that you couldn't be too dogmatic about. Sing Along Emer, you would think with the 28:08, maybe took the edge off, right? After the run the last day, and that second bend, like you were talking about, Ian, I mean, that just is stuck in there somewhere, which would make me concerned. Clonbrine Treaty, if they break alongside, Clonbrine Treaty is going to cause all sorts of trouble for Sing Along Emer. Can Clonbrine Treaty, if Clonbrine Treaty goes back to 141 from 132, then he's probably out of the competition. You know what I mean? And then Sing Along Emer gets a solo because Ballymacshawn is not going to feature early. Hovex Tommy is capable of featuring early and is a player. Why man? I think he actually ran a superb race the last day. And actually, it's funny enough, if you look at his form, he's actually best form is out of top 5, which is funny for an inside seed. He seems to maybe break a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised if he won it now. Why man?
Yeah. Joe, we're conscious that you have to head off. So do you want to say goodbyes? Myself and Tommy will keep rabbiting on here for another 5 or 10 minutes. But looking forward to the semi-finals on Saturday night. Are you getting back for the final?
I have a date waiting for me, and I'm paying for dinner tonight. So
you want to do something with the Gruig, all right?
Bit long, isn't it? Yeah, you know what? I was on the phone to Curraheen the other night. I was crying down the phone. I was so homesick, and I am homesick at the moment because missing that race. The Kirby is such a special competition and means so much to the people in Limerick and beyond. And it's hard being away from home from it, but I'm thrilled just to be able to be part of this, and thanks for having me on. It's fantastic. It's a competition, you know, that has us counting down the days from shortening our winter months, looking at the pubs around the country and seeing what trials are going on around Limerick. Yeah. It's I'm really looking forward to seeing the action this Saturday night. It's fantastic for the GA clubs involved. Out of the 12 GA clubs left, none of them have won this competition before. So what GA club wins that €10,000, that's their first time winning it from the Kirby. And it's fantastic to see the connection between the GA and the Greyhound community, because it's such a strong connection throughout the country, and it's really, really fantastic. And we must give a massive, massive thanks to the McManus family and the initiative to even think of having the GA clubs involved. It's fantastic. I'm really pining for home at the moment, but these days it's great to be able to keep in touch with all the action on Twitter and the Facebook pages and Instagram. You know, there's so much happening in social media. I really encourage everyone to get behind it on Kirby 23 for expats like myself who mightn't be at home. It's fantastic to be able.
Here, Joe. Listen, head off and get a haircut, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a million for having me on the show, Jen.
Cheers, Joe. Good luck.
Cheers,
Tommy, Joe makes a very pertinent point there. You know, you're looking from the start, dogs trialing and whatnot. Like, I saw December 21 whelp running during the week. You know, we're a month away from seeing 22 whelps. Like, potential Kirby challengers will be coming out soon. And, you know, it's very much a case of when people are sort of registering their dogs now, they're looking for that January 22, not the December 3rd 21 anymore. And yeah, we'll be on the hunt for the Kirby winner, you know, almost a full year in advance.
Yeah, we laboured the point there a few weeks ago, but like the program sits nicely now. The program works nicely for the development of a pup of that quality, and so that's what makes it so exciting, and it makes it predictable in the sense of when and how and what you're looking for. But it doesn't make it any easier to find the winner.
Yeah, I meant to ask Joe, you know, what was his likely winner was. Where are you at with the Kirby? I know much will depend on the final draw, but are we both talking sort of a Ben's Teddy idea?
Yeah. I would definitely, like, you know, at the current prices, I think they're roughly joint favourites, Ryhoe Beach and himself. I couldn't have Ryhoe Beach at the moment. Maybe it'll qualify, and all of a sudden it'll be. I might fancy it in the final, depending on the makeup of the race. Things can change very quickly, but at the moment, I would say, you know, you'd be very concerned about the heat the next night. Ben's Teddy, I'm not concerned about the heat at all. Teresa's Mendoza, I'm that depends on how she gets her. That's a really hot heat, and if she happens to find a little bit of bumping, or I don't think she will, but if she did, she could be out of the competition too. Is there anything at a price? Not really.
Could you throw a dart at a Scaglietti with a view that maybe he might get an inside draw in the final? Now the problem is getting over the semi-final.
That's the problem. Like, you could if you really fancied Hovex Tommy, you could have something at, you know, for the heat, you could have something at 20-1 just to have it in the bag going into the final. But then if you get a dog coming out doing 20, if you get Ben Teddy coming out doing 27.85 next Saturday night and getting trap one in the final, you're kind of going, well, 21 is probably what I should be looking at.
no pressure on Ben Teddy to do 27.85 in the semi-final.
He does some night.
Yeah, he will do it some night. Tommy, there was loads happening around the country over the weekend. Again, at a Supersprint in Cork, we saw Flashing Willow return to something like his best.
Flashing Willow would break my heart. Every like, he's immensely fast, and every time you fancy him, he misses the kick and he gets himself in trouble. It looks like an unlucky loser. And then you say, I can't back that dog anymore. And then he comes out in the 17.56 in the canter, and you're kind of going, and I wouldn't mind. Like, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. It's funny to have that opinion of a greyhound that's won as many races as he has. He's won 16 times. But I was going
to say you've been very unlucky backing him certain nights. So
but I guarantee you, right? If you look back, right, he's won 16 times. He's been second twice and third 8 times. I guarantee you, all 8 times he finished third, he was unlucky. I'm telling you, he'd break your heart. Ability to beat the band, but just in terms of betting, because he's inevitably odds on in most of the races he's in. So if you were backing him all the 16 times, you backed him every race you ran in, I guarantee you lost money.
He's 4-5 the other evening. The other heat was won by Super Hitman, a son of Lawhill Blake for David Harrington. Plenty of experience, but a good winner all the same.
Yeah, good winner. Tricky competition. He was a mile clear, a little bit of trouble in the race and whatever else. But he's good dog as well. But those sprints have me beaten. absolutely beaten down. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing out on something from somewhere around the country. But I don't think there's a sprinter that you could set your watch by at the moment. Is there something I'm missing?
Gizmo Cash returned to something like his best the other evening at Shelbourne Park. Absolutely pinged out. Did everything right. 1854.
After getting beaten the previous round in Curraheen Park.
Yeah, I don't think Curraheen's his track. Now, mind you, no matter what track he's on, if he drops like he did the other night, there's not a dog in the country that'll beat him. But it'd be interesting. Obviously, these are all gearing up for a tilt at Dundalk. We saw Bogger Hunter actually running very well in defeat the other night. It'd be interesting to see how he takes to it. I didn't see him as a sprinter, but he ran well in defeat behind Gizmo Cash and Corbrack Prince missed the kick the other night. He's capable of much better. So there are a few decent sprinters knocking about, and of course, one or two will come out of the woodwork in the coming month or two. I was at Enniscorthy on Sunday night, Tommy. We've said it numerous times. It's very important for provincial tracks to have their big night, one night where you can sort of hang your hat on, bring a crowd in. And from what I hear down in Enniscorthy, they're getting good crowds a lot of nights. But Sunday night was a great crowd for the future champion Michael Fortune Memorial Unraced stake. Of course, he loved the place. He grew up there, and he'd be absolutely chuffed to have his name attached to this competition. And it's not just a tokenistic competition, because this is a proper competition this year. Some really, really top class greyhounds will come from this stake. Of course, Thorn Falcon emerged from it 2 to 3 years ago, and I'd say there's a potential for another classic winner or two in it. And the winner, Hackett Carlo, will certainly be better suited by further down the line. He's out of Ballymac Merkel, who was an absolute flying machine over staying distances. She dirtied her copybook somewhat, but she was hugely fast, and by all accounts, she seems to be breeding very fast and very strong runners. He's a dog that you can certainly keep an eye on in the future for over further. But Glengar Martha was potentially one of the stars of the competition. Optic Chico didn't make the final, but these are dogs that we'll see plenty of in the future.
Yeah, the commentator was fairly confident that Hackett Carlo was going to win it after about 3 strides.
Short head.
Short head, yeah. Yeah, poor old Burgess Supreme was about 3 clear to third bend, and it was all Hackett Carlo.
I'll be honest, I negotiated the purchase of his sister after her first race around Clonmel, and she's gone across to the UK. She looks like she'll be a 6 or 8 bend sensation in time. We look forward to seeing her. She's named Ballymac Taylor, so keep an eye out for her. But Hackett Carlo is a dog, certainly 525 yards around Enniscorthy shouldn't see the best of him. You'd imagine, even the way he went to the escape the other evening, he's about 8 clear. That, I know 750 might be a bit too early for him now, but I'd certainly have no fear in stepping up to 575, 600. Dave Burke, who trains him, suggests that he might go to Kirby Final Night, perhaps bring him there for one of the supporting races. I'd sooner see him in a 575 or 600 on the night, but wherever he turns up, he should be suited by Limerick, the chance to get up to full speed from that second bend home. Fast greyhound, have no doubt.
Yeah, interesting too, because he did actually break very well the other night, actually, and the edge slightly right, maybe out of, if I remember rightly. Ran a cracking race, and just those dogs, sometimes when they see that little bit of extra daylight in front of them, they can show that bit more early pace. Just a shout out to it. Obviously, I know him fairly well, so it's a little bit of bias here, but Ken Bastide had a finalist there, Vivaro Billy Boy, who just didn't break and never got involved in the final. Actually ran better than it looked, to be honest about it. But just
we must mention the 6 finalists, actually. But go ahead.
But if just to say, sorry about Ken, just if you're ever wondering about people who are dedicated to the sport, he's been up and down with Capitan Garfio to Shelbourne Park from Cork, right, up and down. It's in Enniscorthy then for the duration of that competition. Was up in Lifford last week for the opening night in Lifford. Constant. I mean, talk about, I don't know. I mean, Esso or whoever they have these days must be making fortunes out of poor old Ken. He's on the road the whole time with greyhounds. Absolutely and utterly dedicated to the sport.
Vivaro Billy Boy, you're mentioning, he won a couple of rounds of the competition. It didn't happen for him, or indeed Glengar Martha, or the outside runner Baz Manto. The outside runners sort of took care of each other in the first 50 yards or so, and they were out of the contest. But there's no question, Glengar Martha, 28.47 in the semi-finals. That's a stunning run. Pat Buckley thinks plenty of her. Vivaro Billy Boy, while he did win twice in the competition, I don't think we've seen the best of him yet by any stretch. I think he's very much one of the more progressive trackers through the competition in terms of, I don't think he had an awful lot of work done prior to it. And Baz Manto came in as a reserve for Get Going event. I think he's in a similar vein. But looking at the front three, obviously Burgess Supreme led for Sheila Spillane and JJ Fenley. Sheila, who will of course be recognised with the Hall of Fame this year. He's a dog that's again progressing. He's a lovely turn of early speed. He'd no right to take the corner off 8 Point Jet the other night, but yet he did. He forced his way up the inside, went to the front, and while it looked like Hacker Carlo was going to run all over him from the third bend home, he really dug in, stayed on a lot stronger, Tommy, and he's going the right way. Of course, the son of Burgess Books, who was a very, very precocious youngster himself, and sadly his career ended early, but he could have been anything, and he's turning into a very nice stud dog. And 8 Point Jet, known as Toffee Man in the early days of his career, half brother to Kildare, who ran up last year's English Derby. He's been bought by Patricia Flanagan, and he certainly has a bright future too. A 28.61 run in the quarterfinals of the competition down in Enniscorthy, and who's to say he can't improve further? Again, we're going to hear plenty more of these dogs in the coming weeks and months. And it's always worthwhile keeping those cards from the early rounds as well, because the dogs that are beaten 15 and 16 lengths in the open round could still go out and be a star in the future.
Well, and these are the sort of things that benefit from the likes of what we're doing here, right? And not me now, but you and these pods, or whatever you want to call them, podcasts, or whatever you want to call them. The importance of them to kind of highlight stakes like this, and to acknowledge the people who are involved in them and who are having the winners, and the different tracks who do need the support, obviously. So it is good to hear you talking about the crowd that was there the other night, and the fact that there has been a good crowd regularly in Enniscorthy. So yeah, fair play to them.
Yeah. No, that's it now. There's nothing more for me to say except we'll see you next Tuesday night in person. Of course, we'll be back with Talking Dogs next Monday. We'll be talking about the semi-finals of the Kirby Memorial. We're looking forward to the decider. There's still plenty of racing left in this competition, Tommy.
There definitely is. Like they're two different. Or you might argue a little bit. There's a little bit a gap between them in terms of the depth of the quality in them. But that's not to say that these pups in the second semi-final won't improve a good bit and be leading players in the final. They're two deeply competitive heats.
Yeah, big
and that makes for a tough competition. I just like Ben's Teddy. He has a bit more experience than most of the rivals. Is he the most experienced runner left in the competition?
He must be close to it. He's
Man has 9.
But he's hardened. 19. Like if you look at the company he's been keeping, he's a really hardened performer at this stage. Like nothing.
The only strikes me as Ian, like if you had said watching him stride, you'd say he's probably a 74, 75 pound dog. He's only a 69 pound dog, actually.
I thought the same. I was looking at the draw there and going, God, I can't believe he's only 69 pounds. Like the bitch is only a pound lighter than two. And for whatever way he strides out, he's so powerful. You assume that he's going to be close to sort of 80 pounds, but no, I agree with you.
Maybe he's long and lean, maybe, yeah.
Bit like myself. Tommy, good luck. God bless. We'll talk to you next Monday and we'll of course talk to you next Tuesday. Don't forget, folks, the Talking Dogs Roadshow is live from Limerick next Tuesday evening. We'll be discussing the final of the Kirby Memorial. No doubt we'll have 6 top class finalists before then, 2 wonderful semi-finals. But that's it from us on this Talking Dogs on Monday. We'll see you next time. Good luck, good evening, God bless.